have a great guest today, Ryan Egbert from Sine Calibration School. Ryan and I do the Metrology Today podcast currently together. I think a lot of the people will know you, Ryan, though you never really get to talk and tell us all about everything that you do and that you've been through and everything that going through the school, getting it set up, trying to seek accreditation, all of this other stuff. And from my point of view, I love the school. I was on it the other day. I'm looking at the
Appreciate that.
sections. I'm contributing more. I want to contribute a section on understanding calibration certs for the force section because all the sections are different. And we were just talking about certs
Yeah,
and calibration certs because, yeah, not everybody, and we've talked about these, not everybody always gets them right. Little
right.
things like is K italicized? Is 95% confidence called out? What was the coverage factors? Measurement uncertainty reported? Are your standards that you use for calibration listed? Are your procedures validated in the whole thing when you issue the certificate? And there's so much stuff that just goes into this generating certs where for those new techs and even those seasoned technicians, I think Sine Calibration School has a lot to offer everyone. So it's if those are following us, this is just going to be a discussion between Brian and I, like we always talk on the phone or before we do the Metrology Today
Yeah.
podcast. We have a lot of discussion because this is really supposed to be raw and unfiltered and just a look into things without naming names and everything else. So, Ryan,
No, I
tell
appreciate
us
that.
about your passion and getting the school started.
Well, part of what you were just talking about is why all of this started, right? Is I came out of the military thinking I knew a whole lot. I was an instructor. I ran labs. I did all the things that make you a professional, right? And then I came out and I felt horribly unqualified as soon as I went to a third-party calibration lab. And um, the the world of metrology is so huge, and I think what you're pointing out is all of these things that are quote unquote holes around the industry, right?
Hmm.
It's because we're a very wide science and industry, and we have no professional training. Like
Very
the
little.
right. Well, if we
Yes.
look at it in the terms of, you mentioned accreditation, and we've decided to look at pursuing the option of awarding degrees, right? Because a lot of us in our industry don't have that option. Now, people will point to there's like the metrology program there at North Carolina, Monroe, and stuff like that. That
Yeah,
goes all the way through,
Butler.
goes all the way through doctorate there.
Mhm.
But very quickly, you'll talk to the people running those programs, and they point out those aren't the people going to work on the bench, right? They're not the ones
No.
going to be technicians. So uh, we all need a professional program, and I always argue that what we had in the military was very well designed for what we had in the military, not for creating commercial metrologists, right? And so a lot of the issues that we have out there is we've been running as an industry as norm and just kind of winging it, and now we're not getting as much metrology trained personnel coming from the military, and we don't have routes, to get that foundational knowledge, and that's where Sine came from. And we're changing from Sine Calibration School to Sine Calibration and Metrology Training because of those accreditation pursuits. And we can't have both, right? We can't have an unaccredited program and an accredited program with similar terminology, one being school, one being university, or something like that. So basically, we're retiring one end of that. But
And
um,
and it's smaller. Like you have a team, though your team's not huge. And
right.
what's the benefit to unaccredited versus accredited? Someone's going to say, well, if I go to your school and I don't want the accreditation, is it cheaper? You're still going to have the knowledge that's still going to be there, right?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to divert and say, hey, you just don't have to take tests or pass quizzes or do anything else. You
Oh
can
yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
that. You can go through the school and never get your degree. I mean,
Right. Well,
so
so
yeah.
we looked at that, and there's something undeniable, right? When we look at labs, we can't get rid of the short course. And
You
so
can't.
all we're doing is changing the name and keeping the short course, which helps all labs. And so what that's designed to do is be an internal training program, right? and it's supposed to be utilized. And we just started that train the trainer last year. Henry, you know about that.
Yep.
Many people don't know because we ran it as a beta program. We had about 15 different labs represented and over 30 attendees. Great feedback, and we wanted to know, are we helping these trainers, right? We helping them, in their training needs. And we found that they needed help from the ground floor up. Like we had a whole program on even presentation skills and all that, and we found that we have to go to the roots of figuring out the whole training plan and how that associates to a scope, right? And so what the training side, the unaccredited side, are all the short programs that we need as professionals. So it's considered professional development. Now there are, certificate or certificate program accreditations we could do. But personally, I'm one of those people that I look at, like, if I'm raising the cost of the training for a certificate, like, does that have any benefit to the end person? And my opinion is no. Like, there's a lot of these that are accredited for certain things, right? But do they help the end user get anywhere in their career? And so
Right.
I don't want to pursue things like that if it doesn't help, right? And there's also laws and things like that. As that we're now going down the road of the 2 year, you start dealing with states and their laws and statutes and everything.
And
And so it becomes
funding,
tricky,
and you don't
right?
want to get it yanked out from you because there have been some famous examples, uh,
Yeah.
you know, of different universities that they had their degree program pulled.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, like I have family members that went through ITT Tech, and those that
Yep.
are back in the, and those are $60,000 programs. And for me, we're at a point in the industry that I don't want to accredit something. There was one route. This is a perfect example, and people understand what I'm talking about. So for the whole time we've been around, there was accreditation options we're looking at. One of which, it was going to cost, where the end user, the enrollment would be $10,000 to $20,000. If a lab has to train 5 to 20 people, that's impossible,
Yeah, and
right?
now you're going to want to pay tax 10 to $12 because you're going to have to absorb the fee, and after they're
Yeah,
done, then they're going to be in a higher fee, a higher class, and a higher work class or whatever, a higher level technician instead of
right.
entry or whatever. But that could really hurt people because it's not. There's so many things out there, and the honestly, with training people, it's we all get better, right?
Mhm.
You learn something, you get better. You look at stuff from 10 years ago that maybe you or I did, and you're like, I just want to tweak that, right? I want to go in. Now I know more. I was looking at an NBS book, which is cool because we've had such a close relationship with NIST throughout the years that they would send us
Right.
stuff, and it said for your eyes only. Well, now it's been 40 years, so I took it. I took that out. Though their section on load cells from 40 years ago was so wrong, like from what we know today. Their stuff on force was really really good. It was a document on mass, weight, and force,
Yeah.
the differences. Now some of them have been redefined, Planck's constant with the definition of kilogram and all that other fun stuff, though it's like things change too and evolve. So if you had somebody that had been in the military and they were trained 30 or 40 years ago, some of those things are now changing and keeping up
Oh
with it.
yeah.
So, and this is where I look at your course and what you're offering. And I'm
Hmm.
part of it. I don't get anything. We can fully disclose this. I just
Oh
love the
yeah.
fact. Yeah, I love
Henry,
the
you've been
fact.
amazing for
Oh,
to us,
thanks.
and I know you're not the type that wants roses thrown at you, but I will let the
No,
listeners know that I my partnership with Henry started with a phone call, and I thought, hey, what the heck? I'll try the force guy and see if he'll be willing to help me with doing the force section of Sign, because like many in the military, right, Henry, we come out with not a lot of force training. It's not something we taught at the
no.
school,
You
and
might
there's
have
no advanced.
you might have used a load cell, a Morehouse machine, or somebody else's machine.
Well,
You
we did.
might have used a proving ring.
I was at an MCC, which we had a force press. So we were at a
Right.
depot level lab at the time. They got rid of them, but So I knew a lot about Morehouse, but I just didn't know, right? And then working at Western States, of course, I had chatted with you a few times about
Right.
certificates, and we haven't had a business relationship there, but yeah, Henry has always been willing to help us with that material, asking for nothing back, and I really appreciate that, Henry, because
Well, I
that,
love, yeah,
yeah,
I love it. You and I talk all the time. That's why we're talking about this. But your school, I mean, and not to blow smoke up your ass or whatever, but I mean, you're looking at like $1,000 investment in a team member
hmm,
that's going to be part of your team and make measurements. They're gonna, if you invest in them, and I believe a lot in culture, you're going to get that back. We pay. And there's state grants that people might not know about. I know our PA, you can get WedNet where we can get reimbursed. I think it's up to $2,500 in training. We've
yeah,
sent
we have
our,
a list. Sign, we
yeah.
have a list. I'm working on getting that onto our website. But if you have a question, if your state has a program, we have a list of those programs.
So you take advantage of it. Sometimes you don't get all the money, and
Say fifteen
sometimes you
hundred
get some.
dollars.
Yeah, and sometimes you get some of it, though it just doesn't make any sense not to do it. I mean, if you have team members that want to learn, this is one of those things that I think's almost essential. I mean, it's not perfect, Ryan. We know. Like,
Mhm.
we're let's not. It's not perfect, though. There's nothing else that's out there right now that's more encompassing than you can get, general metrology, electronics, temperature, force, torque. There's some torque stuff there, dimensional stuff. These are things that Ryan has got experts to come in, and the pricing for a team member that you could even possibly get reimbursed for is huge. And then training in general takes a lot of time and effort. Organizations obviously should have training programs to bring people on,
Mhm.
onboarding programs, performance improvement plans. People get all upset, or individual performance plans. They get all upset with these some of these terms like performance improvement plans. But anybody in calibration needs to know that things change and new people are most likely going to overload something, break something. What else, Ryan? You were new. I've broken
Oh
so
yeah.
many things I cannot remember. And I hope that the training just helps that side of things as well. It shows you're investing in your team members. It shows a commitment. Hopefully they're gonna, if you're out there that is a team member, hopefully you're gonna learn something and help the company that's invested in you. If you're the company that's actually investing in their people, they're gonna it's gonna return some positive dividends in the fact that now you'll be doing things right. And I know, let's get real honest here, there's a lot of labs that aren't doing things right.
Hmm.
They can change today. We know the accreditation bodies are probably not going to come pull your accreditation. We just know these things. We know so many examples of just negligent. We know examples of negligence. We know examples of underreporting uncertainties. We know examples of making the wrong measurements. These are things that I do not know how people can really live with themselves when they're running those companies. And I'm not, and Ryan, we're not talking about like a 4% torque wrench that's actually, you did an analysis and it's actually 4.5%. We're not talking about those types of
Sure.
errors. We're talking
No.
about somebody has no traceability. They bought something off of eBay or somewhere else, and then they said, I'm going to use this, or I made a device to calibrate all my torque wrenches. I use this worn drive thingamajiggy here. I put weights on it. I think I know. I measured the length with the tape measure. I'm throwing some mass weights that I measured with my scale over here, and now I'm making torque measurements for major institutions and
Right.
corporations. Yeah, that are nowhere near the 4%. I found it out. I'm running this little lab, and I'm starting to get business. And what's happening, right? It's like, how much money can I make before they find me out, and I can
Right.
jettison or sell to somebody else, and that
Well,
happens a lot.
I've used this example before, but the best one I can give is one of the reasons I started the school is I was an on-site manager. Well, I was the technical manager, but I did a lot of on-sites right here in the Salt Lake Valley, and I'd go to places that are very important manufacturers, like heart surgery to dental. things like very important manufacturing. And I would go after technicians that would do fraudulent work, like straight up fraudulent, where,
Mhm.
hey, on this pressure device, it's a compound gauge that goes positive and negative pressure, right? But they would give measurements of perfect vacuum. If you didn't know, we are at, well, for one, you can't get perfect vacuum, right? But also, we are in Salt Lake City, which is, thousands of feet above the sea level, and our perfect vacuum here is 12 point something psi, not 14, right? And
Right.
so it's things that someone wouldn't even put down on a certificate or put data and their name to if they understood the basics, right? Because it's
And they
it's
don't
it's a law of
understand it.
nature. It's a law
Well,
of
that's
nature.
just
There is
it.
no way around it.
Who do you fault in this case? You can't fault the technician. Was
Right.
it their responsibility to go out and learn this stuff? Management probably has a procedure that says somewhere that says just do it if they have a procedure. Did they validate the procedure? Like there's so many things along the years that we've learned that I've learned. I'm still learning, right? We had an audit
Right.
one time that came in and like, what's the internal temperature of that device? And I'm like, what? Are we supposed to be checking that? Well, yeah, you're supposed to be checking your Agilent 3458A. I nearly had a
Yeah.
coronary. I was like, I didn't know this. Fortunately, when we did check it, it was running high, and then it was Harry Moody that was in, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, what does this mean? The recalls that we did. Fortunately, he goes, don't just take a bunch of data now after you've cleaned all your filters and checked it and
Hmm.
it's running north and compare it. Well, actually, he said, take a bunch of data right now before you do anything, then clean it, do everything else, and take a bunch more data. And we were like, so we're measuring, it's 8.5 digit multimeter, and we were measuring to
Right.
the fifth decimal place. And that change was somewhere in the sixth decimal place. And that's where
Hmm.
we're talking. Did we do a recall? No, because the resolution that we're measuring to is the fifth decimal place. Worst case scenario. And Harry was cool with it. He's like, worst case scenario, it's within the resolution. However, if
Hmm.
you don't report the measure, I always come back to this. If you don't report that resolution as part of your uncertainty analysis, now what do you do? And
Oh,
uh,
well, there we go.
yeah, but then
There's
people
that
do reverse
discussion.
traces and use the curves, and there are so many ways out of doing a recall. It's not even funny, right? If you're doing everything right, there are so many ways out. And then you go back and look at your process control charts. But guess what? If your temperature's running consistently high, your process control charts could be problematic too.
Right. Well, see,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
brings up the whole thing that kind of blew my mind when I came out to the civilian side, Cal, is the whole industry of non-accredited Cals.
Oh, yeah, and they're everywhere. But
Well, that's
regardless, yeah.
90% of some of the lab's businesses is because, and I think that's where a lot of this stuff falls under as well. Well, it's not an accredited measurement, right?
Right.
Well, so it doesn't mean we throw all measurement principles out the window.
No, though there are some things that we were running into one the other day where somebody want us to apply to torque in a bolts on a load cell. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So fine, we torque them in. Does that process need to be accredited, or does the calibration that comes after it need to be accredited? And I talked to him. I said, if you want this piece accredited, we're not accredited to it. You want us to do it? We can grab it and we can put it on our scope, but the cost we're going to have to spread to basically just you because no one else
Mhm.
is asking us for this. So the
Right.
assumption is we take the torque wrench, torque the bolts in, perform the measurement, and the measurement that's accredited is the one that we performed after we torque the bolts in. Now, I know people would listen to this and say, well, what about your process with the bolts? Well, that's something, is that supplemental or is that something that's really needed? And then we get into the deep, like going into the abyss of R&Rs between technicians. Is our process
Mhm.
replicate that process? Do we want this? Why will you have to, if it's on your scope, you should have a 4-year PT plan. I regress in all of this. It's something we always talk about. How far do you go? What degree do you go? You're not going to solve the world's problems by
No.
sending all your technicians to your school.
No.
though
Of
you're
course
go-
not.
though they're gonna get better, and the price is so cheap. I mean, you have consultants we know charge minimum of 1,500 to 2,500 a day, depending what they are. And I
Sure.
laugh because I'm in business, continuing business programs and stuff, and we have speakers come out and talk to us. And you would think metrology is such, that science of measurement is such a niche market that people could command more than 1,500 to 2,500 a day. You see a business consultant that comes out that just says, "Hey, we're going to teach you how to chop wood, and it's going to be morale booster for your whole team, and your profits are going to skyrocket." Oh yeah, how much do you want for your 4 hour session? And they say 10 grand.
Right.
Like, what the hell? What is this?
Yeah.
I'm not paying 10 grand for people to break boards, and talk about their.
Well, and it gets better that so of course on the website's retail, right? And
Yeah,
a lot of the things that we're going through, we have to be very public about our
right.
enrollment fees and all those things, right? So we
Yep.
have policy documents, all that. But I think the more important thing is my whole goal is to make it where so that is our retail costs, and I still think that that's affordable for an individual. But obviously, if you have training needs for more than five, that's where we have for the partnership deals where it's what we call training max, where you're able to train your whole team for like if you're up to 25 active trainees, that's 5 grand. And so that's a
Yeah,
significant discount, but our whole goal is coverage, right? We're trying to
right.
change the world of metrology. It's not necessarily to try and get every dollar and cent out of labs. We understand like you have a lot of training needs. Now, down the road, the degree programs, the desire is for people to pay for that on their own, right? Like
Hmm.
end result, if we have a perfect world, and you like you mentioned, everything isn't perfect, right? We have to train
Oh,
online for the most part. And so helping trainers is what the train the trainer, that's how we're trying to help facilitate. But down the road, when if we're successful in releasing a degree program, the goal is for people to have that before you hire them, right? Same with our training and certifications. The end result, like right now, we're all trying to train people we're actively hired. We're behind the curve. The goal is down the road. You hire them already with it, right? So, but
yeah.
no one right now. Well, I mean, we're both parents, Henry. No one.
Yep.
We're how parents think. Like who's going to school for metrology? No one knows about it. So why would they tell their kid, unless they know about it, they wouldn't tell their kid to go to school for that right now. There's just no awareness at
It's a
all.
huge void, and we need it. Like everywhere you look, there's measurement,
We
and
need a
people
Super
need to
Bowl
make
ad.
these measurements. And then someone's going to say, "Oh, AI, robots are coming, and everything else." What's going to drive them? There's going to be measurements. Yes, we will automate some things,
Mm-hmm.
though. The world that we're seeing right now is a lot of the equipment and stuff that's out there can't be automated, right? And there's still learning curves, and there's all this other stuff. I mean, you can automate. I want to be very clear about it. You can automate some of it, though. Companies still have equipment that just is analog,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have the money to invest to get rid of all of it, to do a wholesale change. Go to the supermarket. I still see weighing scales in the supermarket. It's not as
Yeah, sure.
frequent. There's a lot of digital ones, but you still do see the ones sometimes that you put put your bananas on or put something else. There's a lot, like I said, it's gone mostly to digital, but
Right.
even that world, like who's going to go into service the supermarket scales, the stupid self checkouts? Again, biased opinion. Uh, that you
Yeah.
should probably get a discount for using because they don't have to hire people, right?
Right.
Going off on a little tangent, but if you go to
No,
the
I'm with
self
you.
checkout, they don't need to hire people, so why not give me 50 cents off for using a self checkout, or 1% or half percent off the bill? Give there something to encourage using a self checkout. Anyway, when you use those, all those scales are maintained by somebody, even in the self checkout. But place your item in the bagging area. The famous line that we always like and all that
Right.
stuff. So I mean, everywhere you go, there's something has a measurement behind it. Your phones, right? Ryan, and you're adding stuff all the time. So back to the school part of things. It's not going to drastically or overnight make a seasoned metrologist out of anybody in your organization, right? It's
Right.
the start of a career development plan in which people can consistently learn. And there's instructors there. right? Different instructors for different things. People can reach out to you, they can talk, and it's setting that foundation so they can get that core, some of the core knowledge. And it's up
Hmm.
to them if they want to continue after that. If they're thirst for this and everything else, Ryan, you can talk about it. You have different levels of the school, but just getting
Sure.
into the level one is not much money, and they can just from there they can decide if they want to progress into more and become that seasoned metrologist. So
Oh yeah.
what
Well,
what are you seeing in general?
so
Like you've
yeah,
started this. Yeah,
so we have some long-term adopters, right? And one that has been public on like Facebook and stuff is Lockheed. So Lockheed
yeah,
Space, one of the managers has publicly said they use us. But uh kind of talking to what you're saying, there's no better way to kind of gauge if someone likes it or will this industry fit for them than putting them through something like our training and then having a trainer, a facilitator there at your location to help them, because we'll teach on modern equipment, Adatel, Fluke, all those things,
yep, yep,
right? But we might teach something on Adatel and you have a Fluke and vice versa, right? So
right.
really we don't teach push the buttons. We teach what are you doing? What are you doing in this measurement? What functions are you using? And then you just got to find it on your standard or hopefully your trainer, right? But obviously not everybody has that luxury of cross training inside, like a Lockheed uses it a lot for cross training, and then it's like, wow, we found a guy in shipping. You know what I mean? Hey,
Yep.
he fits perfectly and he went through the school and all that stuff. So those are the things like when you look at, because we've wanted forever to have, wouldn't I love to put on my website some hard statistic that is a return on investment, an ROI for everybody on going through the school, right? If I had
Yep.
that, oh, I would broadcast that everywhere. But really, it's the feedback, and we have some larger labs that are commercial, and they tell us, we've been using it for 3 4 years now. They have less of those calls, right, to managers like, hey, I'm having trouble with this device when they're on site somewhere. I don't know what to do. It's like some weird temperature sensor or something. They're already familiar with all the temperature sensor types, and they don't need that extra help all the time. And so sometimes it's hard to quantify that, but it's really we also, the fun one I like to share, Henry, we also get a lot of those exit interviews that labs don't get, right? Because
Right.
they'll leave a lab and they'll call us and be like, "Do you know of anywhere hiring?" And they'll tell us all the dirt. And I'm not here to spread the dirt, but
We know
we're
there's a
here.
lot of dirt.
But we're hearing from them. It's not. I feel alone out there. I'm out there. No one's training me. No one's helping me. I
Right.
make phone calls and they're like, "Well, you got to figure it out." Whatever. Last guy did. Well, is there no notes? Having things like this where it's a root, like a foundational learning that's set up as a school, as a training of a professional development program to get you from knowing nothing about Cal to being an active technician. And you mentioned the levels. We broke it. That was an adventure on its own. You were around for those early
I
days
was
of like,
lots of calls,
what is level two, right? Like,
lots
what
of
is
like
that?
shifting it around. You're talking to me, you're talking to Thomas
Yeah,
Harper, you're talking to all these other people. You have to kind
right,
of sift this around. The main goal before was getting to level four. Remember, it was like you're going to
right,
have the hands on, you're going to do this, and scaling it. And then I would push back with you a lot and say, okay, but how do you scale? How do you scale this? How do you do
right.
that? Like you're getting to the point. Like, do you do a thesis paper at level four? So yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead. We
presented at
it's
NCSLI, for instance. I mean, but these are great. We're a weird industry, right? Like we don't have typical methods. We have these conferences that happen, we have
yep.
tech exchanges, we have all this weird disjointed training that we have to somehow make everybody on the same page, and it just is
Oh yeah.
really hard to do. And so we try and be that glue in between all of it that kind of brings it all together for you, right? So level two, what it ended up being, because we do offer level two and three in quite a few programs now, like temperature, and everyone's familiar with temperature. So forgive me, I don't speak in force terms, but
Okay.
temperature, like if we were to talk about in temperature, level two is moving into that secondary cal where you're starting to calibrate other people's standards, right? You're
Mhm.
starting to move up in metrological depth. Where level three, we focus around a lot around building the budget and really understanding that measurement to the top to bottom, to where you know all the contributors, but then also that you're able to do the primary level if applicable, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
so for instance, in temperature, we teach ITS 90 all the way up to ITS 90, and the cells and all those things for those that need it. And like you mentioned, Henry, does everyone need that? Obviously not. And those are expensive cowls. And but is there room for that out there? Yes. I mean, there's plenty of large labs that have they're like, we'd like to calibrate all of our SPRTs for all of our labs, right? Because that would be an X dollar amount savings and stuff like that. But where do you get that training? And luckily, we're able to provide that now. So if you need those things, and like you mentioned, we have the Thomas Harpers and the Martin DeGroots at the very high, like the world class people that can handle all the questions that maybe I can't, right?
Yeah.
Same
And not
on
everybody
the
needs
fourth
it.
end to you
So,
guys. Yeah.
I mean, this is the problem with training in general, right? You go
Mhm.
to a conference and you take a course by someone at the NMI level. Great. They're already talking to you at level 3.
Yeah.
And you sit there because I remember back in like 2006 attending an NCSLI conference about the good, bad, or indeterminate who makes the call.
Mhm.
David Deaver gave it. Awesome guy. But I'm sitting there freaking lost as hell. I'm just like, all I'm doing is pushing and pulling on crap, right? Like I knew more than that. But
Right.
yeah. And we're talking at this high levels, and that's a level 3. Like, where's the foundational pieces so I can understand that? And there are people in that room with me that were like asking these ridiculous questions, and I'm sitting there lost as all get out. Like, oh my gosh, I'm like, so what did I take away from that? Well, I took away a slide deck in a really nice binded book that I went
Mhm.
back to later. That's what I took away from it. I didn't know a lot. I learned a very little. I was completely lost in that class, and I can imagine that more people are lost. I at that point, 2006, I had 7 years of like bench level and management and some other stuff.
Which is
I could,
considerable.
yeah, considerable. We weren't doing conformity stuff at all. And then in
Yeah.
2015, I wrote, I think it was okay. So that's 2006, and 9 years later, I wrote a paper that forever I've regretted this paper because it's not taking into account global risk factors and everything else. It was written very much from a specific risk type of
Mhm.
view, and I didn't label it specific risk only. I was just presenting like this is a problem with industry for specific risk. And then you get the high level people going, well, your statistics are wrong, everything you're saying is wrong, and blah blah blah. Your PFAs are wrong. All this, we all know that with a 4-to-1 TUR, you have a 1.5% PFA, and they're looking at the global scale. So I really, since then, I have tweaked that paper and rewritten it like this was for specific risk only bench level measurements where you don't have anything about the population. Though
Sure.
it's right for that, wrong for just to talk generally. Because now somebody else goes and says, "Oh, Henry said this, and this is that," but I was really for a one type. And the reason I'm bringing that up, Ryan, is because that's so important with what we're doing here and
Mhm.
trying to educate people. What you're doing through the school, what we try to put out for force and everything else, knowledge, and then I dive into risk and everything else, it is because of the fact you do not want to get these concepts wrong, right?
Right.
Mine is overly, what I did in 2015 was overly conservative. If people adopted it, they would be your PFL, probability of false reject. They would have been rejecting more stuff because I was talking from an overly conservative view. Is that bad? Well, it would cost the company a lot of money to start rejecting and adjusting more equipment if they don't have to. So
Right.
yes, it is. It is bad.
Yeah.
Is it bad
Time.
on a safety standpoint? No, absolutely not. People were probably a lot more safe if they adopted that
Yeah.
method.
But I mean, you bring up the point, and that it actually goes into training too, is the time, right? And
Yeah,
a lot of times that's the excuse or the reality, but everyone somewhat needs to stop what they're doing and really examine where you are at as a organization, right? And
yep,
where do you need to be? And like you said at the very top of this podcast, we're nowhere is perfect, right? Nowhere
No,
is perfect, and there's a
no.
lot of room for improvement. But sticking your head in the sand or saying, "Hey, we don't need to do this," or whatever, or just ignoring things or whatever, that's not the answer, and you need to start making
Never gonna
changes.
move the needle, and your people are
Right.
gonna leave you. Your managers are gonna be frustrated as all get out. I mean, I think you said something awesome here, and what I think you said, that's setting a realistic expectation, is
Mhm.
managers, you can wear them out rather quickly. They have to train almost everybody. They have to watch the new person that comes in, right? Follow the technician. They have to establish a training record. Maybe they work with quality to validate the procedures and the effectiveness of training and all of this stuff. If you can kind of parse out a little bit of that, not all of it, right? Uh, I'm watching Yellowstone now, so if you had a course on how to ride a horse, you could sit there, or better yet, like guns, right? We both like guns. Not everybody
Yes.
likes guns, but how to handle a firearm. You
Mhm.
can watch all this stuff on YouTube, right? You can go out, you can say like I'm gonna watch it, I'm gonna do this, I shouldn't do this. I think the level one of the school really gives that foundational piece, that so when
Right.
you do show up to actually do something, like in this case we're talking about guns, and when you do actually, Ryan's also a certified, you were what, your trainer,
I was a range safety officer,
range safety officer, that's right.
and I was a coach, a rifle coach.
So like people show up. If they don't have this, they're a danger to almost everybody, right? Their
Yeah,
fingers on the trigger, not off the trigger.
exactly, yeah.
They might
The
not have
safety
chambered
rules
it.
are
They might
key.
point something at someone. The golden rules. Never point at something you don't want to lose or remove, like if your fingers over the barrel and dumb stuff.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so all of that. So I think in general, it's teaching somebody, it's showing them things. The horse example, like if you saddle a horse, you have to tie the right knots and all this other stuff. It's showing them these pieces that they may not know otherwise,
Right.
right? So now they can come and they take that. Hopefully, they take your courses with their manager in mind, that they can ask the pertinent questions that they need to ask, and they can really accelerate their training time.
Well,
So
and
that's the
I'm glad
yeah,
yeah. I'm
that's the
glad you brought that
statistic
up,
I
yeah.
want. I want to know that statistic, because I'm under the assumption that if somebody's watching this stuff and going out and doing the work, right, that their draw on their manager, the time, the energy that they require from that manager is going to be less, and it's going to be more beneficial for the manager to be answering the really hard questions that pertain to, like, okay, well, the course didn't cover this alignment, it didn't cover this,
Yeah.
the minor ones that make the big impact, but
Well,
it
and
should
that's
come
been
with something, yeah.
yeah, well, that's the big focus of why the train the trainer has been key, because that's what I noticed too. Exactly what you're saying. Because yeah, we can do the best that we can with our online presentation and how we explain things. Like behind me, the set and the way that we do camera work to give the best angle and view possible, right?
Right.
So that they can learn. But there is something undeniable in calibration, that it is in some ways an art and a touch and a feel. And that's why with our train the train program, we help them and help the trainer, because I truly believe you have to have dedicated trainers. It's at that point now in the
Yep.
industry, you have to have somebody that is their role. But I don't want to get too deep on that. But basically, where we take that everything that's being released in this 3.0 over this year 2025 here in the
Hmm.
school, they have those competencies, learning objectives, but also has workbooks. And the workbook is a key for not only the student but for the training manager, right? Someone who's in charge of that, because then you have follow on activities. And if you do those in close proximity, right? Hey, listen to the sign videos and then come to me and we're going to do this practical. That is the ultimate way to learn, right? Because then you're going from learning it to hands on, and then you can go back and review again if you need to and continue that process. But then it's just like something we would do in the military. Do we do that at the beginning? Yeah. Do we do it monthly? Sure. But as they get better, then we start making it quarterly, or maybe we make it semi-annual, or maybe just annually for certain things until you've shown a certain proficiency. But the key is every lab is different, right?
Yep.
So that's the whole point of the direction we're going, is where you've got the calibration metrology training side, which is all for professional development. We can help you set up all the training for people that are actively working, right? And then everything that we're working on accredited wise, that's for the future of metrology. The people that's going to be a 2-year program. Not many labs that helps right now, right? 2 years
No,
later,
no,
you'll have
no,
a
yeah.
technician ready to go. That's not
It
going to help.
might, well, what for your CCT, even certified calibration technician, you have to have 5 years active
Right.
lab.
And that's a
So you're not
yeah,
going to,
yeah,
you can't shortcut some of it,
right.
though this can help speed up a lot of it. And one of the other things here is, okay, we do force and torque. If I want to get into pressure, guess what the first best thing I could possibly do? I'm just sitting here thinking about it. I could sign up and I could have a manager, a team member that's a manager, take the pressure class and say, go take these and tell us what you think. So many times labs do this crap. And I call it crap. And it's like, I'm going to expand my scope and I'm going to go buy
Yeah.
this stuff from Aditel. Aditel's awesome. I don't want to say anything negative about Aditel. I think everybody likes them.
No.
But what's
Yeah.
not awesome is just because I bought the Aditel equipment does not mean now that I'm proficient in pressure and you can go send me stuff and
Right.
I can churn a cert and make it and be traceable. Maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I can figure it out. But there are ins and outs to all of the stuff that's in that class.
Hmm.
So if I'm taking that class, at least I can have the foundational pieces that can benefit me so there's less risk that if I go out and buy that equipment, then I'm going to issue bad certs. There's
Absolutely.
still risk because I know like I know some
Oh
about
yeah.
pressure, but most of us, we're not accredited for pressure. And there's a learning curve at the lab level whenever you add something to your scope, even if you are trained and take these classes and even
Hmm.
have hands on until
Right.
you've done it and
Yes.
seen the crap that comes in and oh, this is a why is it bad measurement, right? Well, guess what? My adapters.
Well, it's funny you
Yeah.
mentioned the in-person, because that's why we have in-person training equipment. That's good. That's great.
Yeah.
Works fine. Good data. But also we have stuff that's bad. So when people train with us, they have something. They're like, it makes them give that double take. Like, wait, hey, hold on. Isn't this a bad measurement? It's like, yes.
Wow.
Yes, not only showing them good measurements all the time, because what do we get 9 times out of 10? 90, we're always seeing a lot of good, right, in our job.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
But the other thing that what people do is this one, Ryan, that's so much fun is okay, I'm gonna sign up. I'm going to the school. I'm gonna take your pressure course. Then I'm gonna go out and train with Ryan and learn how to do pressure. Now guess what? Now I'm the guess what? My boss says you're the person that's going to run the pressure lab. You're going to train all the other people that come in here, and we're
Yeah,
going to establish this pressure lab. It's what happens,
all the
right?
time.
So why not have those people go through at least level one? Because
Right,
that person that came out is not now proficient in pressure, right? They have a fundamental understanding. They've retained probably 11 to 15% if we're lucky of what you've shown them and what
right.
they've learned. And they're going to go out and train people. And maybe they haven't ever trained anybody before, so they're going to have to fumble and learn that. So I'm going to go out and say that level one is going to be a significant crutch for those managers, as
Yes.
far as they can go back and review it. And how long do they have? If I signed up
Typ-
today, how long do I have
Typically a
access?
year. Typically a
So they
year,
have a
but a
year.
lot of labs will sign up with that training max. It's priced in a way that if they need multiple years, it's not too burdensome when you're splitting it out into a whole year. And one thing to mention on that is because the as you're mentioning, that does happen all the time, where that person that gets trained and then they're expected to just osmosis it out. But
Yep.
that is a lot of the ways that this is designed, is to be that those pieces for the foundational internal program. But what
Mhm.
we teach people in the trainer is how to then take your scope, apply it to our actual competencies in the school, but then you need to fill in the gaps for your equipment, right? So we also help you figure out how to make those learning objectives and also how to generate that content yourself, right? You can't get
Yeah.
around the fact that, yes, we all have to teach the whole industry. So we can't be specific to each location. So we're that great foundation that you put them through, and then
Mhm.
there will be individual training. Think about safety things that you might need real sign-offs for, right? Like, hey, yes, I've been trained on not to touch this thing because it will shock the crap out of me, right? Okay, that's been you have to have those things. We can't train everybody for that stuff, right?
No.
So that is exactly how it is designed, is so that you can do that and then send your people to the train the trainer. And if you're if you're doing the training max, the train the trainer is included. That's not an extra cost, but it's a remote course that we do live. But basically, I feel like if I can help other trainers do somewhat what I do, then it helps with the making the online program be more effective, but then also developing your own training programs uniquely.
It's huge. Just my comment on that, it's huge. The trainer is huge. If you can get somebody, if you have a trainer that's confusing the hell out of people, and that's no good. If you can get them to be better, that 11 to 15% becomes more meaningful that people are going to retain from the class. And they're not going to, someone's going to cite me on this. I'm citing statistics. You can go out and look at it.
It is
It's
a true thing.
probably under. It is around 11%. A good presentation, your people are going to retain around 11% average. There
Yep.
are going to be some people that do higher. There's going to be some people that are going to be multitasking and checking their email while they're doing this and everything else. And you're going to have some people that you sign up for the class that probably you're going to check out, and you're going to have people that are going to love it, love the level one stuff, and they're going to rise to the top of everything, right? And
Well,
then
that's
they
the
might be,
goal, right?
yeah, that's the goal. You're not going to, not everybody that takes the class is going to be a great metrologist. Uh, so, and maybe you weed them out early because the cost to your organization to keep the wrong person in the wrong seat is gigantic.
Oh man.
So spending 1,000, I would gladly pay $1,000 to weed somebody out in a month than wait the full year. And we've had painful people, team members that we chance after chance after chance, and it just wasn't there. I mean, this was a long time ago, and we've learned. I mean, uh, when you hire somebody, it's kind of sometimes you have this feeling that you don't want to say they're bad or I made the wrong hire, so you'll put all this effort into them to try to make
Oh
them a
yeah, I feel for
metrologist.
that.
And it's horrible. And just if you can cut it earlier, if they sign up for this class and it's not for me within a month, it's so much better than going longer. So.
Absolutely.
Well, we have to wrap here. Do you have anything you want to add?
If you have any questions, I would just reach out to me. My first name dot last name at sinecalibration.com. So Ryan.Egbert at sinecalibration.com. It, we are able to help out a lot of people just talking to them. I think anyone would attest for us. We're not very salesy. We're here
Oh,
for you when you need us. And if you don't need us, we're not here to bug you. And we're maximized out on the travel training. So really we're just trying to help out anyone that needs it. So please reach out if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help you.
yeah, and that's Ryan, easy, Ryan
Oh
dot
yeah,
Egbert, and it's not two G, it's
not two G's,
EGBT.
EGERT. So
Yeah,
as we
yeah.
say in the military, Echo Golf Bravo, Echo Romeo Tango, right? EGBERT.
There you go. And I think the school's phenomenal. I've known you for years. Love what you're doing. Hopefully
Appreciate it.
somebody listens to this and says, yeah, that makes sense. At least I'm going to try it out because it's minimally, honestly, minimally expensive from what we see with other businesses and everything
Appreciate
else.
that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so just love it. That's it. So see you,
Well,
Ryan.
thank you, Henry. Well, I hope to come on again. I can't wait to hear
Yeah,
more of these.